We'll take a company to 10 to 20K of MRR but with an MVP before we then even build out a product.
Most founders think that they need a product before they can get paid. And my guest today proved that's exactly why most startups fail. I'm sitting down with Sam Marchant, partner at Inaugural. They've built over 7 AI startups in the past 24 months. And in this episode, we break down their exact framework for validating an idea without any code, why Unsexy Industries like voice are the biggest opportunity right now, and how to get your first customer to pay you without building a single thing. My name is Mohammed, this is Startup Fika. Let's get to it. All right, Sam, so just tell me what you do with Inaugural and how it all started.
Yeah, so Inaugural is an AI-focused venture builder. We're based between San Francisco, London, and Dubai. So 3 very, very different ecosystems that have very different founder groups, operator groups, and even investors in them. So it's quite exciting to see all of those different insights. What we do differently rather than like a traditional venture fund, I guess, is rather than allocate capital towards founders building startups, we actually build the companies ourselves. So we'll build them out to normally seed stage, so kind of late seed, maybe up to early A, and then we bring founders kind of along with us on that journey. So our process is relatively simple. We work with some of the largest companies, organizations, governments in the world to figure out what problems they have. Yeah, it's super simple, easy group to work with. We take all of their problems and we say, okay, cool. Are there things here that are worth solving? And if we were to solve them, would you pay for that solution? Would you pay for that problem to be solved? Once we've done that, and and I'm skipping a lot here, obviously. Once we've done that and we've got really good insight, what we then do is validate those companies by making sure that we get revenue right from the get-go. So, we'll pre-sign customers, we will get subscriptions up front, because for us, Inaugural is kind of grounded in this truth that there is no higher form of validation than revenue. So that's how we do things. We've built 7 AI companies in the last 24 months, just over 24 months. And they range that we have one company that's an AI agent for parents that helps them with school admin, all the way over to, we built the world's first AI music chart and AI music distribution platform that now handles over 2 billion streams a month across the kind of artists that it represents. So yeah, real mix. But again, as I say, it comes from the team's desire to basically build startups in a more lean, capital efficient way, which with the equity ownership that we take in those companies, we don't need $1 billion or £1 billion outcomes to actually generate substantial returns, which we believe is more akin or more aligned with the exit environment and exit market that we're kind of now entering. So yeah, it's a fun place to work. I'm very fortunate to work with an amazing team who are absolutely exceptional at what they do. I think we are, as a team, some of the best people in the world for validating ideas and getting things off the ground. So yeah, I'm very honored to work with them.
Yeah, it sounds like you're hitting the right niche with the whole AI hype that's going on. So now that we're speaking about AI, and I'm assuming that you've met a bunch of AI startups, why are the vast majority of AI startups launching today going to fail within the next 12 months, do you think?
Yeah, I think the big reason, and this is just a universal truth regardless of a startup is AI or not, so the building stuff that people don't really care about, right? I've seen AI for all sorts of different things, all sorts of different industries, sectors, problems, geographies, that, when you actually get into it and you kind of drill into the solution and what value is ideally created, people just don't care about it, simply put, right? And not only do they not care about it, they won't pay for it. So, that's why I kind of really, focus on the point that I said around validation and making sure that, from an Inaugural perspective, we'll take a company to 10 to 20K of MRR with an MVP before we then even build out a product or we'll even incorporate the company. So, we have a very specific process for doing that, validating the companies and then spinning them out. But one of the things I've noticed for the vast majority of founders who are, trying to build AI tools for this and that, they're very generalist tools that serve a customer base that is either inundated with tools or actually doesn't really care about whether you solve the problem or not. Like the value upside is just not big enough. It's not a big enough driver for them to procure a tool or even use a tool. So that tends to be the number one reason why those startups fail. We could talk about the technology isn't good enough or, big tech kind of coming in and wiping companies out.
Yeah.
but that's, the small percentage, right?
Yeah.
I would say that's less than 5% of the companies that ultimately
Mm.
fail. Yeah, it comes down to the fact that founders don't do enough validation on the idea, or look at the wrong signals when they are validating a startup.
Yeah. And speaking of validating, with all these AI startups pitching you guys, how can you kind of identify which actually has potential, or maybe is just a thin wrapper that a big player like OpenAI will kill tomorrow with a new patch?
Yeah, well, for us, again, going back to that point around revenue, we don't consider anything validated until it's generating some form of revenue. And it doesn't have to be, at the start, it's often not much, but it does need to
Mm.
scale. It does need to get to,
Mm.
10 or 20K of MRR before we go, okay, there's something here and we're probably pushing in the right way. Our view is very much that, we like to build businesses that have clear line of sight to 10 million of ARR within either the first customer base or geography, or with the first piece of tech that we're launching.
Have you ever like been pitched an idea and then all of a sudden, you know what, your head is in the right place, but your execution is, or maybe the opposite way around, where you think there's potential here, but not really what you're doing. So let's just kind of scratch this idea and go another direction.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I think, whether it's Inaugural or whether it's Family Office, which is the investment vehicle that I make all of my angel checks from, um, I look for the same thing, right? Which is a founder's ability to execute. That's the number one thing, right? Um,
Mm.
Ideas will change, go-to-market strategies will change, product will change, team will change, largely. But one of the things that always remains the same is the founder, the person who's there kind of turning up every single day, pushing and pushing and pushing. If the founder changes, then you've got a problem, right? That's a
Definitely.
kind of absolute, downside, or big, kind of negative outcome. So my view on that is that actually, yeah, okay, you need to validate a founder's ability to execute. And again, that comes in a number of ways. It's not necessarily just track record. It's actually how
Mm.
they approach everything they do. And one of the big things that surprises me in venture capital is actually how little time VCs spend with founders, in and around founders, right?
Mm.
To understand not only what makes those people tick personally, but also to understand what are the patterns, what are the habits of hyper successful founders. And the honest answer to that question, or the way that you kind of combat the question of what I've just said, is, well, actually, the vast majority of high quality founders, there's not many of them. So actually accessing
Mm.
them and getting time, spending time with them is really difficult. So for the vast majority of VCs and investors, it's very hard to do. So yeah, it's one of those kind of catch-22 questions or answers, which is, well, where do you start? But yeah,
Mm.
that's my biggest thing in that sense.
And now looking into when to know when a project should continue forward or not, because with AI everything is moving so fast. What kind of data points or signals that makes you look at a project and say, you know what, let's cut our losses, and maybe this isn't something that's going to lead anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's always a hard one, right? Because, as founders, naturally, we're optimistic, right? We're optimistic that
Yeah.
we can pursue a better version of the world, or a better solution to a problem that someone experiences, or we can change reality in a positive way. That's naturally what you have to take that mindset if you're going to be a founder. The issue with that, though, is that often you can overlook very obvious signs that something isn't working.
Mm.
While we say that, revenue is the highest form of validation, that is very specific to either B2B AI companies or SaaS companies generally. If we're talking about
Hmm.
hardware or deep tech, it's very, very different. I personally don't have enough experience in those in that kind of space to comment on that.
Hmm.
I've always been investing in, B2B SaaS or AI. But, one of the things I think for me is, as a founder, when you start to see what the signs of product market fit might look like, whether it's high
Hmm.
user retention, whether it's repeat revenue expansion, cross sell, upsell, all of these things come
Mm.
into play. But you just start to feel the momentum. Everything just starts becoming a lot easier, right? So people are able
Mm.
to pick up the product, they're able to get into the product and use the product much easier. They want to tell other people about it, and then also, on the flip side of that, they are really, really kind of evangelists and users of it, and they love it. So every successful founder I've ever spoken to has kind of told me, and we've experienced it as well with our own
Mm.
companies. just how much that becomes obvious as you hit that product market fit
Mm.
inflection point.
Yeah, definitely. We've been talking a lot about revenue and kind of making sure that's one of the bases that needs to be covered for someone to seem lucrative. And you've been around plenty of projects and maybe started your own. How do you get your first customer?
Yeah, I mean it's as simple as it is difficult, right? One of the things that I've learned, with from the inaugural process and everything that we do, is that one of your biggest assets is actually your ability to bring people along on the journey with you, right? So
Mm,
what we do, and I think we do this very well, is we will spend a lot of time identifying who would a user be, who would a customer be, because often they're not necessarily the same person. And we would say, okay, this is the person who's ultimately going to be deriving value from this product. Are they also the budget holder or controller? Yes or no? And what do the links look like between those two people if they're not the same? And then, we try and piece it back together from there. People always love to give you their advice and their opinion, right? And if you
mm,
become very open to asking people for their insights and their knowledge, what you find is not only do you get to a better outcome with the product much quicker, but you also have people who are more bought into what you're trying to do. I've found it now on all 7 of the companies that we've built that we will have a group of kind of, I would say for B2B, SaaS is normally like 5 to 10. For the 1 or 2 D2C propositions we have, it's obviously a lot larger. You're talking about thousands of people there.
mm.
But we have these people who kind of come on the journey with us, right? Like they
Yeah.
believe in the product that we're trying to build, or they believe in the trying to solve the problem, and then they're willing to pay for it. But in that very
Mm,
first instance, what you're doing is just taking their insight and ultimately trying to scale and build with them. And then it becomes a simple
mm,
conversation around, okay, if we are delivering this much value to you, and you can put a monetary figure on that, you should probably pay for the tool, right? There is, and often people don't like asking for money, but that's kind of nonsense. Like you have to, at the end of the day, you're running a business, so there has to be cash
exactly.
that kind of
This is
comes
not
in
a
and comes
hobby.
through. Exactly. It's not a hobby. It's not a passion project. So, and then at that point, okay, it's about how can you remove as much friction as possible. So we're in the process of launching a new company now, actually this week. And we were talking today about, okay, well, how do we get people to sign up and to pay revenue? And it's literally very simple. It's a Stripe link. It's a Stripe page that they can pay. They either will or they won't, right? And that comes down to whether or not we have got the messaging right, whether we have done enough for those customers to get them convinced that our solution will actually give them the value that they desire or that they want. And if not, then we go back to the drawing board and we think about that again. The key thing is that founders put that off for too long. You need to just put it out there and
Mm.
see whether people pay. That's the first obvious step in kind of getting these things moving and getting them over the line.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree with you. And now that you've been around and seen all kind of AI come towards your company, what do you think are some specific unsexy industries where you think real money is hiding within the use of AI?
It's a very good question. I don't want to give away all my answers because there's some things that I really want to build and that we're quite excited about Inaugural. Look, and I think all markets are different, right? Like, yeah,
Mm,
obviously I'm living here in the UAE. The UAE is a very exciting market just because of the number of different cultures that are present within this geography and how those individuals interact amongst each other. That creates a really interesting dynamic of not only differences in expectations when it comes to service and value that's created, but also in terms of where people are willing to allocate their money for either a better reality or a better life. In terms of what excites me over here in the UAE in particular, anything that touches voice. So, whether it be translation, whether it be even things on like WhatsApp, like communication tools, AI is
hmm
proving to be consistently a really, really powerful tool in overcoming, some of the either language barriers or data collection plays that you kind of see. The adoption of AI in this region has been slower than other regions. Largely because, there were concerns around data sovereignty and where, data would be stored. And the GCC countries all took separate positions on that, right? And so it's very,
Yeah.
very different there. And then on the flip side of that, you also have a relatively young tech ecosystem here. So data quality when it comes to, building out AI solutions that ultimately deliver value to those customers, it's still very new. still very new.
Mm,
And that excites me. For a lot of people, that doesn't excite them because, they think, okay, well, there's a time delay here and when is it going to happen? But it is happening. And I think for me personally, I'm interested in being there at the forefront. And, Inaugural's positioning is to try and cover all of the markets in terms of their maturity cycles. If we move from, west to east, like you've got the US, the UK, EU, and then kind of coming into the Middle East. Now, the rate of change across those industries or across those geographies, sorry, is vastly different. And it's
mm.
an exciting time to be building here in the same way it is an exciting time for slightly different reasons to be building in the US. So yeah, I'm not going to give away all the secrets. That's why I'm giving that answer. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
for me, anything that touches voice and anything that touches it sounds obvious, but like very, very manual workflows where
Mm,
data quality and like input quality is really important or is actually paramount, like from a regulatory perspective, I get excited about that.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you again. And now you got me interested to see what you guys are going to be cooking up in the next few months. But yeah,
For sure.
wrapping up here, I see you as an entrepreneur, as an investor, and you have so many different arms. Why do you do what you do today?
Great question. Why do I do what I do today? I absolutely love being around exceptional people who are building their own version of what a positive reality looks like, right? Which might sound like a wishy-washy answer, but I genuinely am very, very lucky that every single day I get to wake up and be alongside not only the incredible team at Inaugural, but our founders who are building out the kind of companies that we've started, but also get to be in ecosystems where people are just constantly pushing and pushing and pushing. I think some ecosystems are very different in how, from a government level, how much support you get. And that's why I'm here in the UAE, because I think it's very, very pro entrepreneurship right now, which is super exciting and the best place to build. But for me, it's just, I'm naturally inquisitive. I love switching between things. I wouldn't say I necessarily like solving hard problems from like maybe an intellectual level, but what I like doing is building solutions to problems that ultimately people find hugely valuable and are willing to pay for. That's something that I just get excited about. So yeah, like I genuinely have the best job in the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything, even though it's very hard and very frustrating and super long hours and all of that. But at the end of the day, being around truly exceptional people who have a bigger vision and a big dream around how the world will look once they're kind of done achieving what they want to achieve.
Mm.
That's super exciting. Tell me something that's better than that.
Difficult, and I don't think anyone can change your mind about that. So I think you should stick to
No.
what you're doing because I think you're gonna be doing an amazing job. So just wrapping up, what is the one question you think people that are getting into AI and maybe have their idea, what's a question they should ask themselves before actually turning that into a real business?
This is quite a broad brushstroke question, but have I properly validated this idea? Right. So, and what I mean by that is, do I know my customer really, really well? Do I understand the pain points? Do I understand the solutions that are available now? Do I understand what positive value looks like? And how do I understand how to create that? So yeah, comes into that top line question, but that would be the number one thing I'd encourage people to ask.
That's a perfect answer. All right, Sam, that's all the questions I had for you. Do you have anything you want to share with the people?
No, I think, look, as all I say is, take time to validate the companies and the ideas. You'll save yourself a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of stress if you do this. It's not, it's not a negative thing if you validate an idea out. In actual fact, it's often, I found in the world and the universe, it often pushes you towards something that you are meant to be doing, right? So, go through that process. Don't be afraid of it. Just take time with it, right? All of these things take time.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Sam, thank you so much for getting on. Make sure to check out Sam's podcast together with Bill. It's an amazing listen. And yeah, catch you guys in the next one.
Thank you, Mohammed.